Welcome back to Rising. Lindsey, what's in your lens today?
Let's get to it. So here's the thing about healthcare in America. You don't really notice how fragile the system is until your bill suddenly doubles, and no one in Washington seems in a rush to fix it. That's exactly what's happening right now because Congress failed to extend Enhanced Affordable Care Act subsidies. Now more than 20 million Americans are waking up to higher insurance premiums, some by hundreds of dollars a month. Not because they changed jobs, not because they got richer, but because political gridlock just won. Healthcare economists warn this isn't just painful, it's dangerous. As premiums spike, healthier people are more likely to drop coverage altogether. That leaves a smaller, sicker insurance pool, which drives costs even higher. A classic policy domino effect, and once it starts falling, it's hard to stop. And let's be clear about who's getting hit the hardest. The so-called, quote, missing middle. Now, these are people on both sides of the political aisle. These are people that are self-employed, gig workers, small business owners, and employees, low-to-income earners who make too much for Medicaid but don't have employer coverage or can't get Medicare. In other words, people doing everything right and still getting squeezed. Take 37-year-old single mom, Caitlin Provost, a social worker who tells CBS News her monthly premium is jumping from $85 to $750 a month. Or this Salt Lake City filmmaker, Stan Clausen, who also tells the network that he was paying just under $350 last year, and now his premiums are $500. In this economy, many people, that could be a breaking point for them. Now, politically, this fight is far from over. 4 vulnerable House Republicans recently joined Democrats to force a vote to extend the subsidies, though the effort is a long shot and expected to stall in the Senate. Still, some Republicans acknowledge the stakes. Politico notes that Republican Representative Dan Muser put it plainly, saying, quote, a lot of people are receiving this health care. They don't need the rug pulled out from under them. Now, voters seem to agree. A KFF poll released in December found overwhelming bipartisan support for continuing the subsidies. 84% of the people that are enrolled in the marketplace, including about 7 in 10 Republicans, say Congress should extend the tax credits. And the poll also found that if they do expire, most enrollees say either President Trump or congressional Republicans deserve most of the blame. Now, Democrats are already turning this into midterms messaging because unlike other policy fights, this one is immediate and personal. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer summed it up this way.
When it comes to health care, the damage has been done. After January 1st, it's very hard to put that toothpaste back in the tube. And Americans will know when health care dies, it was the Republicans who did it.
Republicans, meanwhile, are scrambling, blaming Democrats, blaming the system, and still searching for a simple, unified plan to lower costs.
Well, sometimes you got to be the grown-up, and you got to make the tough choice, and you got to
let people suffer? That's the tough choice?
That's emotional manipulation. This was a
$85 to $750
subsidy that was always intended to expire, so now it's gone away. We're already spending tons and tons and tons of money on healthcare in this country. We're spending more than any advanced nation. We can't just throw more money at the problem. We do need fundamental reform to the system. I agree with that, so that we can lower prices. I've pointed to we can do medical malpractice reform. We should do drug pricing reform. We should end patent abuse. We should make it legal to import drugs from other countries. We should cut out middlemen, insurance middlemen. We need a market-based revolution in how healthcare is provided in this country, in my view, not a socialist revolution, which makes it free, but it makes the care not as good as other nations have found out. That's all the things we need to do. Just throwing more money at it. Yes, I don't want to raise prices for people. I know that's hard. Democrats always have a winning message by giving you more stuff. Hooray, more stuff for you. But that's not the responsible thing to do.
Well, I think it's irresponsible to allow Americans, because Congress failed to do their job, suffer in this way. And so there's people who are not relying on any government entities in the way that they're asking for any medical coverage as government sponsored. They're not on any SNAP benefits. These are people that are in the middle working hard that literally just want to be covered so that they're not just going to the doctor and never figuring out who's paying for it. It'll end up being us, and trying to get health coverage that literally are being priced out. There's parents who have been in articles that are like, I'm just going to keep insurance for my kid because I want to protect them, but I can't afford to have it for me as well, that we're in this ACA market.
Well, you have to have it. You're required to have health insurance.
Right, but some people are still just not going to do it. That's just the fact of the matter, what happens here. There's a lot of people in this country who just decidedly don't have health insurance that are in either the gig economy or freelancers. And you have to remember, these people are not just Democrats.
Made it illegal
but
to
these,
not purchase
these people
health
are
insurance.
not just Democrats. These people are not just Republicans. These people are across the board, people that fall in this middle, 20 million people that are seeing rising possible costs in their health insurance. And so even if the idea for Democrats was to kick the can down the road for 3 years just so people can afford to have health insurance, that is something as opposed to nothing. Democrats are not doing anything. No, but instead of 3 years, how about 3 years Congress gets to work and you name all the possible ways? I can't imagine that. But in this 3 years, they can actually come up with a new plan because you know what? Republicans have been complaining about Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, since it was even pitched as an idea. And so the fact that we are like more than a decade past the idea when we first started talking about the thing, and there's no feasible plan forward that the Republicans have laid out that makes health insurance affordable in our country is absurd. And so when people start to get angry and think about who they voted for and who will change the economy, let alone the many other things that the president has already done that have made it harder for the average American to afford things, when these same Republican voters realize that they either have to decide on illegally having no health insurance or paying $850
I would say
a
that
month.
Republicans disliked Obamacare for good reason. Because of Obamacare, a lot of Americans lost access to health care plans that were rendered illegal because of Obamacare that they were perfectly satisfied with. This is the central lie of Obamacare. If you like your plan, you can keep your plan. That was not true. People lost access to the kind of health coverage that worked for them. We need a market-based solution where insurance markets exist and you pick the right kind of coverage for you. Maybe you're a young, healthy person. You really only need catastrophic coverage like the kind you'd get if you were in an accident or something like that. You don't go to the doctor very much. You don't need that kind of coverage. If you're an older American, maybe it's the reverse. Let the market adapt to what individual need is. We don't have that because of it's a partially socialized system. It's not an entirely socialized system. Probably an entirely socialized system would be better than this weird hybrid system we have where so many people are still trying to squeeze out a profit, and then it's not. You don't have accountability over what the price is because you don't even know what you're paying. That's what I always say. We talk about this all the time. Is the central crisis in healthcare is that you don't know what you're paying for, so the market can't function.
Millions of Americans were not covered before Obamacare, and millions of Americans have insurance after Obamacare. And so that was a good thing. And no matter how...
Millions of people have insurance that they had insurance they liked and don't have it anymore.
Okay, but we're thinking about the country as a whole, and people still are going to go to the doctor or still go to the emergency room. Again, you're not answering the substantial question of who would pay for it when people didn't have insurance, when it wasn't, as you're saying, illegal to not have insurance. Well, people didn't have insurance and they still went to the same doctors. They still never paid the bills. So where does that just go? It just falls into this ethos of debt that we have and we have to figure out how to cover. And so this is what I'm saying.
If you wreck your car and you don't have car insurance, you got to pay for it.
Yeah, but a lot of people just don't. And so then we're just sitting here in this,
then you get
this broken system.
repo or you get
okay,
go
but
into
I
debt.
think that Republicans understand
make
that
a bad bet, lose. That's your fault, not mine.
When people have real life examples of the fact that their costs are now going up and Democrats are accurately pointing out the fact that Republicans decided to do nothing instead of anything at all, well then in November, Republicans are going to see those same people that voted for them to be in their position in the first place are going to say, well, I'm uncomfortable. Your leadership has failed me. And then what's the plan? So if they're okay with those results, then just know that would probably be the case because a lot of people are upset that they're paying this much or going to lose insurance or just decide to not have it at all.
Next up, a tech billionaire is raising concerns about the lack of regulation on social media, and he says it's time to limit the First Amendment. That's next. Don't go anywhere.